Analytical and clear. This chart shows historical expectations for console life cycles. Over 6 years, manufacturing efficiencies usually drive retail prices steadily lower. The 2026 market instead shows an upward trajectory. Hardware currently retails $200 above its original launch window. The inflation curve sharply intersects the depreciation line we relied on. Industry insiders call this RAMageddon. It is a systemic shortage of memory and NAND flash storage originating right at the physical supply chain level. Memory chips are so scarce that electronics manufacturers are scrambling to secure basic computing pipelines. The physical components required for modern interactive media are simply harder to find and more expensive to build than they were 5 years ago. The financial impact touches every major competitor. Nintendo adjusted the Switch 2 up by $50. Valve pushed the 1 terabyte Steam Deck to nearly $1,000. Microsoft raised prices across its Series X and S line while discontinuing larger storage models. For the PlayStation ecosystem, the barrier to entry sits at historic highs. A base-level digital PlayStation 5 Slim now costs $650, and the premium PlayStation 5 Pro demands $900. In this climate, a PlayStation 5 is no longer a casual entertainment expense. Navigating this market requires an investment strategy. You have to know exactly what capabilities you need and exactly when to execute the purchase. The base PlayStation 5 Slim hardware forces a compromise. You have to choose between a cinematic graphics mode at 30 frames per second or a lower resolution performance mode targeting 60 frames per second. The visual clarity drops noticeably if you want fluid movement. Sony introduced the PlayStation 5 Pro as the premium hardware solution. It packs an upgraded GPU pushing 18.05 teraflops to bridge that performance gap. But raw GPU power alone cannot solve the demands of upcoming releases. Games like Grand Theft Auto 6 run immense background calculations for complex physics, crowd interaction, and pedestrian density. Those heavy simulation workloads are bound by the CPU. Because both the Slim and the Pro rely on a custom AMD Zen 2 architecture, the processor creates a hard bottleneck. Achieving 60 frames per second on these specific titles is physically impossible on either console. This chart shows physical frame render times, and it explains how the Pro circumvents that bottleneck. By targeting 40 frames per second on a 120 Hz variable refresh rate display, the console locks in a render time of exactly 25 milliseconds. It offers a more responsive feel than 30 frames per second, without hitting the CPU limit of 60. The Pro then pairs that stable frame rate with PSSR 2.0. It uses dedicated hardware tensor cores to take a lower internal resolution and reconstruct it into a pristine 4K display, utilizing its upgraded ray tracing cores to execute sophisticated lighting. The $900 price tag is high, but it provides a specific utility. If you want a stable, high-fidelity presentation for the most computationally demanding software of this generation, the Pro is the required hardware. Hardware specs are only part of the equation. You also have to factor in the shift in third-party publishing. Microsoft recently moved to an explicit multi-platform model. Franchises that historically defined the Xbox brand are crossing over. Halo Campaign Evolved, the Fable reboot, and Forza Horizon 6 are all scheduled to launch on or port to the PlayStation 5. Sony continues to deliver its own lineup alongside those titles. Software like Marvel's Wolverine and Ghost of Yotei remain locked into the PlayStation ecosystem. For 20 years, the rivalry between these two platforms dictated purchasing decisions. You bought the box that had the exclusive games you wanted to play. This migration changes the calculation for a new buyer. With the software wall removed, a single PlayStation 5 now hosts the library that previously required 2 separate hardware purchases. You can manage the hardware cost by navigating the subscription tiers. The annual PlayStation Plus Extra tier operates at roughly $11.25 a month, giving you access to a catalog of over 400 games. The efficiency multiplies in a multi-user household. Sony's family sharing model allows a single primary subscription to be shared across up to 16 separate accounts on the same console. The peripheral market offers another cost-saving avenue, especially in virtual reality. The memory shortage hit standalone headsets hard, forcing Meta to raise the Quest 3 price to $600. The PlayStation VR 2 avoided that inflation. Because it is a tethered headset that offloads computation and memory to the host PS5, its manufacturing costs remain stable. The retail price is still $399. Combining family sharing with stable peripheral pricing brings the total cost of ownership for a 4-person household down to a level comparable with previous console cycles. Buying at full MSRP during a random retail trip is a mistake in an inflationary market. You have to sync your purchase with specific seasonal windows. This matrix maps your path. High-fidelity enthusiasts target the $900 PS5 Pro during late November Black Friday bundles. Budget buyers target $499 refurbished Slims during July Prime Day clearances. For ecosystem management, buy annual PS Plus Extra during Chinese New Year sales. Navigating these windows changes the financial profile of the purchase. Timing your entry secures a hardware platform capable of running the generation's most demanding simulations without paying the peak retail premiums found in 2026.